Without doubts, I think it's by far the best league in the world.
How dare you score like that in the Premier League? Mission accomplished in the Premier League. The American.
Next up, we have Manchester United. This is going to be a challenge in objectivity for everybody involved, especially for me, because I have a freaking brother that is a huge United fan. But I'm able to get a lot of the United fan perspective from him because he is like an objective, smart football fan overall. So let's start with you on this one, Bickler. Let's start with their outgoings. There's a lot of moving parts going on over there. Obviously, they put all their baskets with Barcelona, just waiting for Barcelona. And then once Barcelona was ready, the on and stuff. So there's a lot going on in terms of incomings and what they're going to do there. But let's look at the outgoings for one. And then more importantly, you could possibly add Ronaldo to this. So what do you make of what they have lost?
I mean, this is addition by subtraction, essentially. I mean, you've got like Cavani, who I thought was one of their more I thought he was actually one of their more productive people when they got him on. They just got him on late a lot of games, but like I think he's 35, like, so that one makes sense. Matic out. I mean, okay. And then the top three are just absolute knuckleheads. Jesse Lingard, Paul Pogba, Andres Pereira. We talked about Pereira in my just absolute hatred of him. Pogba, what a talent, dude. But like, Manchester United has spent a better part of a decade letting him go for free and then buying him back for a bunch of money and then trying to pigeonhole him into a lineup. And I think the only time that they ever got productivity out of him was when for a little bit, Ole was playing him in an advanced attacking midfielder on the left side, and he looked fantastic. And then Ole was like, nope, formation shift. That's working. And so they did a formation shift and moved him out of there, and then he was back to crap again. So, I mean, addition by subtraction on outgoings, I guess. There's just so much here for them to sort out. So much.
So Pogba is an interesting one to me because, I mean, we've seen him play for France, and dude has loads of talents. And physically as well. I mean, he could be. And I don't know. I guess that's my question to you, Gally. Is it a matter of if he wanted to be, he could be, one of the world's best players? Or is he just a victim of the kind of like the mess that I think any United fan would agree to that they have had with the revolving door of different managers, the lack of stability, the lack of leadership, and maybe like relying on the wrong people for that leadership?
He's got a $1 million talent and a 2-cent head. And I don't even like to do you see him when he plays for France. When he plays for France, he's playing alongside N'Golo Kante and other like world-class players in the midfield that do jobs for him that allow him to not work that hard, which let him be a lazy SOB on a pitch and then pop up and make a worldy goal. Everyone talks about his time at Juventus. Manchester United's buying the best midfielder in the world. It's amazing that midfielder doesn't look so good when he's not playing next to Andre Pirlo. Isn't that just amazing? They did all the work. Even the Juventus midfielders, Conte used to say when he was the manager, I love Paul Pogba. All you want to do is talk about Paul Pogba. Why won't anyone talk about the players who make Pogba great? And that's a direct quote from his own manager. If there's one thing Alex Ferguson got right, it was this kid's not worth the fight and let him leave. He'll never be a Manchester United player. And then 2 years after, in the one window where they weren't listening to what Sir Alex wanted them to do, they went out and spent $90 million on him. And once you put that price tag on a guy you let leave for free, he's going to fail, especially if he cares more about how many people are subscribed to his YouTube channel or clicking on his Instagram pages, or whether or not he was able to fly his barber in from France to Manchester to dye his hair. The guy is an enigma. He's like Mario Balotelli, honestly, who just got a little bit more time to play at the top level. But I'd argue the young Mario Balotelli playing at City was actually a better like talent with a bigger upside that waste it more. So Pogba just gets all the plaudits, but honestly, I don't think he's worth half the press he gets.
See, I don't know if I fully agree to that. Is he as great as everybody makes him sound? No, because there's a lot of weaknesses to his game. But at the same time, that goes to when you get somebody like that, you better, I mean, you got to know those weaknesses and build the people around them accordingly so that he does perform like he performed at Juventus in France. So I think that kind of like a chicken and egg kind of thing. I don't know if does Pogba have like the sports as his focus? No. And I think that's that's why I was kind of asking. I think that's partially on him if he really wanted to, but I don't think he's just that kind of personality. I think it's almost like a kid that, he has the physical abilities and almost like the game comes easy to him. He doesn't really have to work hard, it feels like. What do you think, Bickler?
I mean, I'm thinking if I have an Airbnb, I'd rather lease it to Pogba than Balotelli. I think you got a better chance of the place not being burned to the ground. So I'll give Pogba that. I think there's some. I'm not as like harsh as Gally is on Pogba. I think he has got some points though. I think that Pogba does have a tendency to be lazy and drift through matches for sure. I think that though any sort of functional, capable club would have gotten more out of Pogba. And I think Pogba suffered because somebody didn't put blinders on him and put him in the direction he needed to be. I think he's a player that needs guidance and direction on the pitch. I think where Pogba is different from Balotelli is that if you try to do that to Balotelli, he'll buck you off like a wild Mustang. Whereas I think Pogba will take that direction and probably learn a little bit. Yeah. So, and I think he suffered from a lack of. I think he really suffered from a lack of leadership.
Because he's not that guy, despite the price tag. You don't buy leadership with a price tag. It's just, depends on the personality. And I think another thing that, obviously, aside from buying him back and forth and losing a ton of money on that, I really thought the whole Jesse Lingard thing made no sense. I mean, we were, when we talk about other teams, there are some situations where we say, get something for him. And there were teams interested in Jesse Lingard in like the January transfer window last year. They did not move him. They said he's still in the plans, which I don't know what the plans were because the season was already in the shitter and they didn't get anything for him. And then they lose out to him. At one point, he even talked to Premier League. Major League Soccer teams over here, which I'm assuming was just to increase his price tag or maybe get a trip over here or something like that. But aside from that, obviously there is the Ronaldo situation, which could possibly be a loss. Gally, let me ask you that. I think the main issue is they probably should have never brought him back in the first place because that kind of put him almost back a few seasons. But at the same time, I can almost see why they would have to, because he was a legend of the club and it was more for not letting him go to City. I don't even know if City was going to take him, really. It was more like Ronaldo's agents doing good work over there. But what do you make of him coming back and obviously the drama that is there now?
So I actually believe he was going to City. I actually think City was angry when he didn't end up there. They spent all summer trying to sign Harry Kane, realized they couldn't, and then tried to put their eggs in the Ronaldo basket. And I really wish they had, because it probably would have meant we'd have an EPL title right now, because he probably would have thwarted their plans the same way, because he doesn't fit into any setup anymore at a big club, which is why there are no offers for arguably the best goal scorer of the last 40 years in Europe. Ronaldo going to United was great on so many levels because it allowed United fans to pump their chests, tell everyone they were back, they were going to win the league, and Ronaldo's here to bring us back to glory. And then honestly, Ole was really actually doing a pretty good job betting in players, and they were buying the right type of players for his system and Sancho, and he was actually developing an identity. I don't think it would have kicked them on to win a league, but I think they would have had a good chance last year to finish in the top 4. And by January, their insecurities were at the point where they wouldn't sell Jesse Lingard to West Ham because they were trying to catch them in the table. Like, that's hilarious. Like, that's really the reason. It wasn't that he was in the plans. He was in the plans of not helping David Moyes finish above them in the table. And, the idea that it's sad to me, because if they had sent him there, they'd be playing in the Europa Conference this year, and that would be even more fun. But the thing about United is, for me, I think we'll go to incomings probably, and to me, the most important in is the new manager. And I don't know if he'll be a success yet. It looks like there's an identity on the pitch. It looks like he's getting more out of some players. Rashford looks a little regenerated. Sancho's had a good preseason. Martial scoring goals for fun. Son of a bitch still doesn't smile, but I'm not sure it's in his nature or ability.
He's French.
Yeah, it's a good point. I was trying not to go there, Paul. I ripped on Pogba enough, thanks. But I do like some of their moves. I'll be interested to see what a 5'9" center back like Martinez can do in the Premier League. That's going to be interesting. Some think he'll be a defensive midfielder. I think he's going to be Maguire's partner. But Eriksen on a free, all these different moves, they just don't make any sense. It still looks like a club to me that's struggling. And I think the idea that they secured an $85 million deal that Barca has agreed to, and they're willing to almost match Frankie de Jong's wages, and he won't even consider going to play for a manager he knows and loves, to me says everything. They are a club that is in utter neutral. And I'm supposed to be neutral, so I'm not going to tell you that makes me happy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. And I think this is the issue they will have. I mean, you look at, some of the moves. I mean, Eriksen, obviously, yes, he can bring some stuff. And, if nothing else, is somebody great to bring off the bench. Martinez, I don't know. He has that passing range that I know everybody liked. But, yeah, the size could be an issue. And more than that, I think his partner is the main issue there, is Maguire. And I think that's why maybe somebody like De Jong, and that's why somebody like maybe Ronaldo wants out, is it's a team. I think Ten Hag is in a very, very difficult situation because they have to have a good start. Things have to go well because there are so many underlying issues that they have, so much drama that's kind of like slightly covered now with his arrival. And obviously he's like trying to instill some discipline, doing like different things. And you are right, Gally. You see, you watch him, and like some of the players that were kind of really dragging around last year look better. But I feel like, Paul, it will not take a whole lot for that cover to just fly off, and underneath you got such a big mess.
Look, I mean, we're at this really uncomfortable point where I almost feel bad for like supporters of this club because like it's such a mess. Like the only and the crazy thing is that we're only 2 years away from them finishing second. Like they were second 2 years ago. Like, and I honestly think it's a culmination of a lot of things. The only hope that they have is that Lissandro hits a late growth spurt. They have a team function up in Aberdeen in Scotland, and they act like they schedule a team function up in Aberdeen, Scotland, and nobody goes except for Ronaldo, and they just leave him there. Like, that's the only shot they have, and neither of those things are going to happen. Like, they're in real trouble. And I think, the moment they took the ball out of Bruno Fernandes's hand, that's when it went downhill. Like, for the first time in 5-6 seasons, where they looked like they had an identity and they looked dangerous as a side, is when they put the ball in his hand, said, "This is your team. You pull the strings in the midfield." And that's when they had an edge. They had like some guile going forward. They had some shape to them. They got none of that now. And Ronaldo really, really sort of just sank the ship for them in terms of just stripping the identity out of that by everything having to go through him. I don't like, look, they can't get rid of Ronaldo. They can't get De Jong in the door. So they can't get people to leave and they can't get people to come in. The only people they got coming in are people in the Dutch league that Ten Hag coached and knows before and has a relationship with over there. And so, yeah, that's a real problem for them. The only thing that's going to save them is if they can pull together enough momentum this year where they can start convincing people to come on board. But this is going to be rough, man. This is going to be rough.
And I think that's like the issue because I do agree, and I know we've talked a lot about Bruno Fernandes in the past, and I think that's kind of put Bruno a couple of steps back when you bring a personality like Ronaldo back. I mean, you brought a club legend back, so you knew he was gonna get the attention, and then you have the whole captaincy with Maguire drama going on, and I was actually shocked for Ten Hag to kind of like double up on it. But in some ways, I don't know if he had an option because you can't give it to Ronaldo, who's pretty much saying, "I'm trying to leave over here." And I don't know if that would have made him stay, or I mean, he might stay anyway, only because of lack of options. But what do you make of that entire Maguire drama? I mean, I think the main issue is you can have Ten Hag as a great manager and a leader, but if you're not able to give him some leaders on the pitch, I don't know how far he can go. We talk about Klopp, we talk about Pep, about being leaders, being the face of the, like the club and everything like that. But, obviously with Liverpool fans, you have a Henderson, you have a Milner, you have a Van Dijk, you have leaders on the field that keep things together when things start to kind of fall apart. Every game, you're going to have some situations where some of the wheels are going to start wobbling. That's when your leaders come in. And I feel like, I mean, obviously Maguire is clearly not that person. I think any United fan, I don't know any United fan who says, yep, that's the leader for us, Maguire.
So I'll go two sides here. One, there was an easy answer. You hand the armband to Bruno Fernandes. He's your best player. He said everything right, including all about the manager's strictness, schedules. He wants us to be early. That's fine with me. I'm always on time. And what that really saying is there's a bunch of assholes at this club that show up late to shit. Basically, why don't you just call Rashford and Sancho out? Like, they're immature, they pout, and they didn't play well, and it showed up in the results. Oh, yeah, and by the way, when Ronaldo's not playing, he goes to frickin' Portugal, and I got to sit here and hang out with fucking, people I can't understand in Manchester. That's basically all Bruno Fernandes has said all year. So you could have easily handed him the armband. Paul said he feels bad for the supporters of United, and it makes him feel gross. I got to be honest. I feel bad for Harry Maguire. I don't think he's that great. I'll tell you why. He got booed 4 minutes into their first friendly in Australia by his own supporters. You don't do that to your club. You don't do that to the captain. You don't do it a week after the brand new manager says he's the captain. If you believe reports in Spain, believe this or not, and I actually read it today as a legit story. Barcelona wanted Harry Maguire as part of the De Jong deal because they just needed defensive bodies at center back. And they thought he might be able to play in their style because he does do a good job with England with bringing the ball out and dribbling and all that. And Ten Hag refused. Ten Hag believes Harry Maguire is his best center back. Now, he's in training with him every day. He obviously is a bullish manager. He's moved him to the right-hand side. He's going to be playing on the right. And I think that's to help make Lissandro have an easier time on the left. He clearly hates Varane because he's playing the freaking Swedish statue in front of him, in Lindelof instead of him. So to me, I think Harry Maguire kind of gets a bad rap here to the fact that the players at the club seem to really like him. The guys in the dressing room actually respect him and always defend him. The guys on England love him. And I don't think he's a top-level center back. I don't think he should be 80 million. But I saw nothing from Varane except for a washed-up player who looked like the bad version of himself at Real Madrid the last 2 years. And I don't think Lindelof or Bailly are center backs in the Premier League. So Harry Maguire is still their second best, if not their best center back. And if the coach wants him to be captain, it was an easy move to pull the captaincy off him. So he's doing something behind the scenes and in training that earns the respect. It's 3 managers that have made him the captain of this club and never took it away from him. And he's been the first name on the team sheet the whole time he's been at United. I think the guy just gets a bad rap because it was a huge price tag and he's not as good as Virgil van Dijk. And that comparison is always going to be there as long as Virgil is succeeding at Liverpool and he is faltering there. And now I need to end this and go take a shower because I feel dirtier than yesterday when I was saying nice things about Everton.
See, I don't know. I definitely disagree with the whole Maguire thing. I think he does not carry himself as a leader. The stuff he says, I mean, in a struggling team, I don't think he's smart enough to say the right things, even trying to being politically correct. And I honestly don't think there are a lot of players who do not respect him in that locker room. I mean, that's at least what you hear from, like, the rumblings that come on the background. I know for a fact, probably a guy like Ronaldo does not respect Maguire. And I think because
He didn't
of some of
respect
the
Benzema.
things. What was that? Well,
He didn't
he's
respect
Ronaldo.
Benzema.
And I thought that was like kind of like an other odd thing too, to have. Yeah, I feel like if you can feel bad for Maguire, where he was put into a situation maybe he was not fit for. And I think that's like the only thing. But then he has not handled that afterwards gracefully. The fans booing him right off the bat. Yeah, and that's what I mean is it's not going to take a long time. Even when you start the season upbeat and can get the fans behind you, it's not going to take long time for them to turn. It's going to take one mistake. What do you make of that whole Maguire mess? I guess let's go with mess as a nice word.
Man, it's just ugly, dude. I think that there is a little bit of truth to the fact that like Maguire's got a little thing. I mean, maybe Gallagher's right. Like, look at what we did as Liverpool supporters. A majority of the fan base did with Jordan Henderson. Like 3 years of us trashing Jordan Henderson, and 3 years of him being the captain through multiple managers. I mean, there's a little bit of that there. I do think that Maguire tends to be a little bit of a knucklehead too, though. So I agree with both of you. I don't know. I mean. I don't know, man. I don't
want to like cut you off, but I think like with the Henderson thing, the biggest difference is I feel like, as Liverpool fans who watch Henderson, I think that's kind of like the curse of the defensive midfielder, or a midfielder who does a lot of stuff that does not show up on the score sheet. You know what I mean? Like an assists and goals and stuff like that. I think people who know the game. What was that?
He was called a fraud, and we tried to sell him to Fulham for frickin' Clint Dempsey. We tried to move him out of the club, and
well, that was not. Thank God he didn't freaking want to go, because that was us not reading the talent or putting the kid in the situation.
He was booed by our supporters after he did that.
But what I'm saying is the reason a guy like Henderson, even when he was, I thought, playing his best and probably one of the team's best players, people still saying, like, we got to do better than Henderson and stuff, where people who just do not understand the value of what are some of stuff he begins. So I don't think a comparison to Maguire in that sense is not fair. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. Harry Maguire is one of the 5 best players at the Euros. 5 best, easy. He was a first team starter. He was the best player on England, top down. Helped lead them to the finals of a European title, of a European championship. He came back to United and it didn't work. He's had 3 different managers. He's had a caretaker in between. I can't believe I'm sitting here defending him like he's some high-level talent. I don't think he is, but I just think the amount of hate that is thrown that man's way isn't that far off of the amount of hate that was being thrown Henderson's way. The difference was we liked the guy at the beginning and we liked the guy at the end. And I think he has never once said a negative thing about United, about his teammates, or about the supporters, even though they're doing to him what they are. And I think there has to be some level of leadership that comes out of that in a room so divided as they are. And they could have stripped that captaincy from him at any point. So all these leaks and rumors, that could just as much be the people that want the unrest at United to be bubbled up through the media. I mean, to me, a new manager comes in. If Harry Maguire was a problem at Man United, he'd either be jettisoned, he'd be down, or he'd be knocked down a peg by at least taking away the captaincy. This manager clearly believes something in the player, or he's an absolute moron, and nothing I've seen of them on the pitch so far makes me think he's a moron, to be honest.
No, I think, Ten Hag is probably the biggest thing they got going for them, but we've said this before for managers when they first come in. Like Bickler, you were talking about like Ole, and when he was, it feels like anytime they try to establish certain things, it goes down. And I know Ole's style as well was not very favored. Same thing with Mourinho, obviously more like parking the bus and stuff like that, which United fans do not like. They want more of an attacking team. Having said all this, now let's get back to that whole De Jong mess, who I just actually read today that he was willing to take a pay cut in wages just to stay in Barcelona, which is
Please,
probably
God.
embarrassing and annoying to United fans, if nothing else. I mean, it is embarrassing. The dude is like, I'll just play less. Please let me stay here. And I know it could be because he knows when you look at the two situations, you have a Barcelona team who is somehow pressing money and spending it that's not there and is on the rise. A lot of good young talent. They keep acquiring more pieces, and they're in a 2.5 league team. Whereas coming to United, he's in danger of not seeing Champions League for quite some time.
Part of this might be too that he's been best mates and on teams with Ziyech and what's his name, Van der Beek, who have both just had horrible experiences in EPL, both off Manchester United and at Manchester United. So my guess is his close friend group is like, be a good boy. Be a good boy. Be quiet in the back seat and just ride this out, buddy. Like,
and they all listen to Daley Blind like he is like the head leader of the Netherlands, and he basically walked out of United and was like, it was a train wreck the whole time. I had a Dutch manager and Louis van Gaal, and I still couldn't be a success there. Like, there is no pleasing them. But to kill the De Jong thing, his pay cut is from $470,000 a week to $395,000 a week. So let's not all hold a vigil for the pay cut that Frankie's taking. He's getting to stay.
We'll put some money together to pay the difference for him.
The son of a bitch is going to stay living in Barcelona instead of moving to Manchester and make $395,000 a week. You know,
yeah, to downsize the patio.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of getting a freaking garden apartment in Manchester.
So prediction time. Gally, let's start with you on this one. Where do you see United finishing?
Absolute best case scenario. Everything works. Ronaldo's gone and everyone hits. They maybe could fight for fourth because I think Chelsea and Arsenal and Spurs and that whole lot will all be fighting for third to eighth. But I do believe they could finish as low as sixth or seventh. I think if things don't go right, they could tumble. I really do. I think if Ronaldo stays and things don't go right with Ten Hag, they could be looking at like that awkward 7 to 9 range in a terrible, terrible season, making last year's record low even worse.
Yeah, it's almost like hard to imagine. One can barely dream, so I can make fun of my brother a bit more. It's season that's worse than last year, to be honest. But I have him as fifth or sixth. I just do not. Obviously, the top two is pretty much there. I just do not see them doing better than some of these teams that are more established, have a better system already, and adding pieces. So I have him as like sixth, probably. What do you have, Bickler?
I think best case scenario, they finish fifth. I think they will finish sixth or lower. I think there is just too much. There's too much to clean up. Like, there's just too many moving parts that just need to be fucking sorted and junked. And I just think it's going to take some time. But I can't. I mean, if they beat out Arsenal, that will be a good year for them. I can't see a scenario where they finish higher than sixth personally.